Checking the mic. Is that coming through at all? Can you adjust it a little bit there for us, Seth? Is that any better then?
Sounds better.
Okay. Whoa. We'd like to begin with our first item is the presentation of a retirement plaque for Ronnie Bogdan after 25 years of service with the Carbon County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff, we'll turn some time to you.
You guys have your...
We do.
Okay. Ronnie, come on up here. So, we'll turn the wheels of time back to 1992. Ronnie Bogdan started with the Sheriff's Office in 92. It's special for me, the relationship I have with Ronnie, because he hired on and I hired on several months later. So every bit of trouble that we could get into, we were like two little kids. We did. And it was awesome. And Ronnie was always there to be that leader even back then, because he knew more than I did. And it was nice to have him around. He's always been that person. I left the Sheriff's Office and went to APMP, and still, anytime I needed Ronnie, he was there. So we know in the future that we'll have the same. And in fact, I think I should share, and I may have. I'm alive today because of this guy. I got stomped by a bull, and had he not been there, the bull would still be stomping. So he saved the day for me. So that's just one of many wonderful stories about Ronnie's career. He's served his community and his county very proudly. He's definitely made the Sheriff's Office a better place to be, and we already miss him. But we know that he'll be there for us. He's going to continue helping us out through training throughout the future and still be part of our family. So I love this guy. I'm proud of him. He's done a great job, and he's moving on in retirement.
I'd just like to say thanks. Fun career, but it's time to move on. It's time to spend time with my family. I'd like to tell the sheriff thanks, tell the commissioners thanks, and until we meet again.
Ronnie, come on up here. We have a retirement plaque for you, just small gratitude of appreciation for your years of service, and thank you so much. Thank you. Our next item I'll turn over to Commissioner Hopes. Or Commissioner Meller, excuse me. Looking in the wrong direction.
Well, Seth was saying he was going to switch our name tags up so that I could be taller, but I don't know how that works exactly. Anyway, the next item is the presentation of a local veteran who has been serving other local veterans. And this is a very neat thing. This is something that he was actually recognized for at the state level, and perhaps for a little bit better introduction, Tom Niederhauser, will you and Michelle and Mike please come up, and would you present Mike and tell us exactly what he has done and how it is unique?
We're just talking the good stuff here, though, right?
Yes, just the good stuff, Tom.
So what's incredible about Mike is he's gotten or earned the Presidential Achievement Award. And he did this award in 5 years, where it takes the average person 15 to 20 years. And what the Presidential Achievement Award is, and correct me if I'm wrong, 10,000 hours of volunteer work. And Mike's volunteered as a driver taking veterans from Carbon County, and actually once or twice from San Juan County, Emery County, up to the VA in Salt Lake City for their appointments.
Now, this isn't just, volunteer to give a ride. People who do this have to pass a stringent physical, have to, have a DOT certificate of some kind.
They do. I've only been a volunteer about the last 3 years. And to be a volunteer, geez, you got to submit fingerprints. You have what am I trying to say? A background check. FBI background check and everything. You're already checked out well. And it's just a fun thing to do. I enjoy doing this because I figure that's my way of giving back to the community. I'm not real active in my church, and so I like to do this. And as a veteran myself, I met Mike, and I saw what he was doing, and I'm going, geez, I need to get on that ship. And but he's there all the time. If we volunteer for days. If anybody can't take a day, who do we call? He's just there. He's the man. Everybody knows him, and I really respect the guy. He's a hard worker, devoted, and this comes out of the state, or is it the state?
Well, it's federal government.
The federal, but it's the best in the state.
Recognition in the state, yes.
And I think he surely deserves it. And it's nice to represent Carbon County, or Price, Carbon-Emery County, basically. That's what he did, and that's a feather in our hat.
Well,
Because when we go up there, they say, "Oh, you guys are from Price." That's kinda cool.
we know that Mike doesn't toot his own horn very much, so I'm glad that the both of you can be here to help present him. And anytime that somebody from Carbon-Emery County can put us on the map, so to speak, by receiving a state recognition, the Presidential Award, we're very grateful to honor you here in the Commission chambers. And thank you for your service to our country and for your service to our veterans.
Give him a few.
I would just like to say that everything that we do is because people need it. And as long as they need it and as long as I can, I will do it. And these two, the same as. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
So if you know any veteran that needs a ride up to Salt Lake, give us a call.
Mike's the guy, right?
Not personally, call the
Call the VA.
Yeah.
Veterans Transportation Service, and they'll assign them to us.
Yeah, and how many drivers do we have here locally?
4 or 5? Oh yeah, 5 at Betty.
I remember that there was a handful, and at one point in time, Mike was the only guy for a period when others weren't able to do it.
Mike was it, and they put out a little feeler, and that's when I applied.
Okay.
So we're always looking for good drivers.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you recognizing me.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mike. Our next item is to open sealed proposals for brownfield assessments. Do we have some?
One.
We have one.
This was an RFQ that was released back in August on the 16th, and it was due back for today on the 5th. Please.
Since we have only one, and since this is for a federal grant, I just wanted it for the record that we sent this out not just in the newspaper and through the through the website but we also, I sent it out to the DEQ process that we have so that they could send it out to all of the people. And I know that they send it out to several companies within the state to have them look at it. So it has gone through the right process. We had one other company was looking to submit, and they chose not to at the last minute. So we've gone through the processes. We just have one submittal. I just wanted for the record that we've gone through the right processes to do this. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Didn't want to interrupt. Okay, the proposals we received are from Stantec. And they're lovely bound books, which I don't
Thank you.
believe they have. I don't believe anything else needs to be read into the record on them other than that it'll need to go to the committee for review, and they're here. So.
Tammy, who's on that committee?
We haven't decided to, probably commissioners and maybe Christian and stuff. We haven't decided.
Got to make sure that Curtis is part of that, please.
We can do that. And I'll be out of town until the 15th, so meetings and other things, so probably the week after that.
So let's take a motion on accepting that then, commissioners.
I'll make a motion to accept the proposal from Stantec.
Do we need to accept it or acknowledge it?
Acknowledge, whatever.
Anyway,
Motion to acknowledge that.
and a second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's go ahead and form up the committee and take a good look at it.
Yeah, I think we should probably add the county planner to that as well, the engineer and the
it's-
planner.
Where it's federal dollars, we will have to go with that process, so. Thank you. Next item is the approval of minutes. Commissioners, I have two sets in my packet. Let's go ahead and start with August 16th.
I saw no changes. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next one is from our August 2nd meeting.
Again, I saw no changes.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor then?
Aye.
Motions carry on both of those. Our next item is a discussion on the status of Oliver Lane. Christian.
Commissioners, Oliver Lane is a road that's in the Westwood area of the county, just off of Gordon Creek Road. There are several county residents that live off of that road. The road dead ends now where the highway, more or less at the US 6 highway. So it's a long, fairly long road. It's a fairly narrow road. As you recall, some of the homeowners have asked you to begin providing maintenance along that road. As part of that request, they have also, some of the homeowners have said, well, it's a county road and therefore you must provide maintenance to us along this road. So they've asked you as commissioners to make a decision or to tell them, are you going to treat it as a county road and are you going to provide maintenance? I've done some research into this and I have some recommendations to you. My recommendation is that you not make any formal declaration of whether it is or isn't a county road beyond what's already been done and what's shown in the record. And based on the information I've received from the county road department, I don't know that you are under, I should say it this way, you are not under any obligation to provide maintenance to that road, even if it is a county road. And further, it's very difficult for the county to maintain that road, to provide snowplow service, to keep it paved and properly graded is extremely difficult because of the narrowness of the road and the lack of turnarounds on the road. So I just want to cover a couple of points as to why I'm making that recommendation, that you take no action on the road right now. First of all, one of the reasons you've been asked to declare that it's a public road is some of the homeowners say, well, that's necessary in order for us to be able to sell our property or to convey title to our property. We have to show that we have access to a public road. We have, at the suggestion of Commissioner Hopes, we've commissioned a title report from Professional Title asking to determine whether any of the parcels are blocked, asking whether a public road declaration is necessary in order for homeowners along that road to have access to their homes along the road. And what we found is that there are express easements leading to each and every homeowner along the road. So it does not have to be a public road for any property owner along that road to legally access the road. All of the people that live along the road right now have recorded legal easements that grant them access to the road. And further, in my opinion, even if that didn't exist, they would be able to have an implied easement because their use of that road has been open and notorious and continuous for over 20 years. And so just about everyone on that road would be able to prove that there's an implied easement anyway. So my first point is you don't need to declare a public road in order for these people to have access to their homes along the road. Secondly, as I mentioned, the county has done some maintenance of that road in years past. The county has received B road funds and has received money for that road. It has also provided work on that road. And so I've received information from our county road crew and from our GIS department, showing that between 2003 and 2015, the county's received $8,407.80, and between 2010 and 2014, the county has spent $8,539.67. So the county, the money it has received for this road being listed as a B road from time to time has been used and applied to benefit this road. For the past 2 years at least, the county has not listed the road as a B road, and the county has not received money for that road because it's just too difficult a job to maintain it. And so the county has said we're not going to seek money for that. Well, the county is not required to spend each dollar that it receives for a particular road on that particular road. It can mix and match funds to benefit one road 1 year and then upgrade another road another year. There's no particular requirement that a certain minimum amount must be spent on any particular road. So I just wanted the county to be aware of that. So even if this were a county road and you decided tonight to formally declare it to be a county road, the county would not be under a requirement to do any particular amount of work on that county road, even if it were a county road and even if you were receiving funds for it. There's no minimum standard of work that must be done on a road. The other thing I would point out is that even if you made a declaration that you believed that road to be a county road, it would not be a final declaration. That would still be subject to a court making a determination. And it's very possible some of these homeowners may seek a quiet title action to see who the owner of the road is. But I don't see the need for the county to express a formal opinion beyond the indicia it's already given in the past. Finally, there's been some talk, well, county, if you're not going to declare it a county road, maybe you ought to just vacate it. Under state law, if you vacate a county road, the respective owners of the road on either side of it then own up to half of it, up to the center line of the road. So if we were to formally vacate the road and say, you know, we're not saying this was our road, but we're going to vacate whatever interest we had, it does create a presumption that ownership of the road has now shifted to the adjoining landowners. And to me, that's, once again, the county would be creating an inference or creating an implication that it owned the road once and it's now doing something else with the road. My recommendation is that because it's clear that everybody has access to the road, that the county does not need to declare this to be a road or declare it not to be a road. Both of those actions could cause legal headaches to all the landowners when it really wouldn't change what actions the county would take or could take, and would just cause headaches, I think, to the adjoining landowners who are trying to solve this. So my recommendation is that you not vacate the road, you not declare it to be a county road. The county can look at things from time to time as necessary. The county could, you know, if all the homeowners joined together and all the property owners along the road received a request to do some help, that's something the county could look at but wouldn't need to. So my recommendation is that the county not take any action at this point. I don't think the county's violated any laws in the way that they've managed this road. They're not required to seek funds for this road. It doesn't, the indicia that it's a county road are far short of what you usually would have, such as a recorded document. There's no recorded document saying this is a county road other than a subdivision plat that referred to it as a county road, but that was not a declaration by any public body that was looking at the road per se. The county did receive road funds for it, but again, the county has not formally declared this to be a county road. I don't think going on the record to say more than has been said is going to benefit anyone. And therefore, I think the things should be just left in the status quo, as that way we're sure that nobody's going to lose any rights that they already have.
Commissioners, any further discussion?
I was just going to say, I think, Christian, you've summarized it all pretty well. There's been several human hours put into this from various parts of the county, whether it's recorder's office, surveyor's office, engineer's office, planning department's office, road department office, GIS, and we've definitely thoroughly looked into the matter. And you know, another thing to consider is if people are concerned about how we're using taxpayer dollars, some of these items that come before us, which should be looked into thoroughly, do cost us perhaps more than the issue being addressed. I just wanted to make that comment.
I don't believe that this is an item that needs any action on it. I would ask if you would send a formal letter in regards to this discovery and to each of the homeowners along Oliver Lane, so that they have that from us directly.
Sure, happy to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next item is a review and possible approval of the minimum standards for the Carbon County Airport. Commissioners, as we did our master plan this last year on the Carbon County Airport, we also needed to establish a set of minimum standards. And as we went through the process of selecting a new FBO, at that point in time, there were some questions on a couple of the areas. We've since had conversation with Redtail and also with the engineer that we use with the airport. They suggested that we go ahead and approve the minimum standards as written. Kind of the final step for this is we will be giving a copy of it to the FAA, and if they have any changes that we need to take care of, that will have to be brought back in an addendum to this particular minimum standards. But as you've seen and as you've been part of that discussion over the last months, that's what we're here today, is to take a look at that one more time and seek an approval for those minimum standards for the Carbon County Airport. Any questions or comments or concerns in regards to the minimum standards as you have seen them?
This has just been a long time in coming, and a lot of careful deliberation and reviewing what is in the best interest of the county and how we can be a good partner with our operator. I don't have any concerns or questions with it this time. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Have a motion?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Our next item is review and possible approval of phone loan agreement for victims of domestic violence or violent crimes. I didn't see Dina come in.
Commissioner, she asked me to cover that.
Please, Christian.
You might recall you entered into this same agreement about a year ago. And this is just really an extension of that agreement. She still has some clients that she's helping, some victims of violent crimes that she's helping with this, and they're still using those phones, and by signing this agreement, that allows those phones to continue to be used. And once again, it's a free program that the county pays nothing for. It's all, the minutes are donated by Verizon. There is an indemnification clause that says we will indemnify Verizon if for any reason Verizon is brought into any kind of lawsuit for the use of these phones. That's why I think it needed to go to you for consideration. It's hard to imagine what could happen as far as that goes. I don't see any risk really to the county participating in this program, and Dina tells me it's been a big benefit to the people she's tried to help.
Any other discussion, Commissioners?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the phone loan agreement.
Motion.
I'll second that motion, and I'll just add that, the use of these phones for those victims of violent crimes, just so the community is aware, is sometimes individuals need a new phone number. They need something that their past life doesn't have an attachment to, and this provides them that service, that means of communication, means of contact with the sheriff's office, and and a phone number that perhaps other people don't have that could be detrimental. So it's definitely a wonderful service and quite a good thing that Verizon is doing to help out people in our community.
See, so we had a motion.
And a second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Our next item is consideration and possible approval of a memorandum of understanding with Prywide for use of the Farnham Rock Pit for the Wellington Prywide EWP project. And commissioners, after looking at that item and talking with Christian, also with Prywide, they have not had a chance to see both sides of this agreement, and so the recommendation was that we table it, and have asked that Rita put that on the agenda for this next commission meeting. But let's let both parties take a look at it and see if we have anything that needs to be changed or reconsidered before we bring it back here for further discussion.
Sounds good.
I'll make a motion to table until the next meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our next item, next two items, is with Four Corners Behavioral Health and Carbon County Sheriff's Office to provide qualifying substance abuse disordered inmate detox protocols, psychiatric medication, and medication to treat substance use disorders. So let's handle that one first, and then we'll come back to the other one. Karen, if you'd like to come up and take care of that.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
So the first agenda item is a contract we wrote. The legislature wrote $6 million for the Justice Reinvestment Initiative, and we wrote a grant for Carbon County. Some of the money will be used for inmates that are struggling with detoxing in jail, or they need psychiatric medication, so they're having mental illness issues, or even substance abuse stability while they're in jail. And that's what this is. I don't have the contract though. I think Whitney was going to bring it. Is it, or maybe it's here? You don't know? I don't know. Maybe, okay, okay. So this is a portion of the JRI funding, and we talked to Jeff and Dr. Williams, and they said this would be really, really valuable to inmates to stabilize them. So that's what this contract's about.
So the medications will be given out by people at the jail, if I read this correctly,
Mm-hmm.
and then reimbursed through mental health, through Four Corners.
Yes, yep. So through this grant, we'll give the jail a budget. And if they have somebody that has schizophrenia and they come into jail, some of those medications can be really expensive. So they can use that, pay for those meds, or if they're detoxing and they need meds to help them be comfortable and detox safely, or any kind of substance abuse medication if they need to be stabilized while they're in jail. So any of those three things can be used. So it's $10,000.
And it's a huge need right now in the jail. That's going to help us a ton. It'll get people stable, so when they're released, they can make good decisions and hopefully follow through with Four Corners.
What after jail, what are some of the programs that people can get into? I mean, we do a great job getting them detoxed while they're in jail, but it's after they leave that the problems begin to pick back up. What programs do we have to pick them up and carry them through until they've...
That's a really good question. So our state didn't expand Medicaid, and so most substance abusers don't have an insurance benefit to pay for their treatment. Four Corners has written a lot of grants for different medications and treatment and services in a sliding scale, so based on ability to pay. So they can come over and get services. Another part of this grant is to have a case manager help kind of connect them to treatment, because there is kind of a cliff when they get out of jail. Sometimes picking them up from jail and getting them right to treatment is the best thing. So they're not, their old friends aren't picking them up from the jail. Yeah, so we're working hard to get people into treatment, continuing the medications, and getting them committed to turning their lives around.
And the hope is that this will start some kind of a relationship that will bridge when they get out, and it'll kind of be seamless. They can follow up with the same
This is a
folks.
step in that direction, and we still have the ongoing issue of what happens when they get out of jail. But this is a wonderful example of different agencies within a community working together to provide a better service, where, like Sheriff Wood is mentioning, there's that introduction there's some communication before they get released.
Yeah, it's just,
So many years ago, they thought that if somebody detoxed and it was so painful, if they made it really painful for them, they would never use again. They would never relapse again. But what they're finding is substance abuse addiction is a chronic relapsing disease. And so most likely they are going to have a relapse. And if their memory of detox is so horrible, they're likely not going to get sober again. So making it comfortable, it also can be physically, dangerous to detox. So making it a comfortable, safe process can really help them in the long run with their addiction.
I think it's just great that Sheriff Wood and the Sheriff's Department and Four Corners Mental Behavioral Health is working together to combine the monitored environment, combine the detox, and the other services that relate to that. So.
Yep, thank you. So here's this first contract.
So we need a motion on that.
Make a motion to approve the contract between Four Corners Behavioral Health and Carbon County Sheriff's Office.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Karen, we want to make sure we get signatures and copies left with
Okay.
Rita today, please. Our next item then is a review and possible approval of Utah Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Authority state match.
So this is Jeannie Wilson. I should have introduced her. She is my finance manager for Four Corners. And as you know, Four Corners provides safety net mental health and substance abuse services for our 3 counties, Carbon, Emery, and Grand. The counties are the local authority, and we provide those services for the counties. Four Corners was created by the counties to provide those services. In the past, Medicaid has contracted directly with Four Corners. This year, they wanted county signature, which is, it's fine. I think they do that in most places in the state. We have a Medicaid contract for 5 years. Excuse me, this is the Medicaid match contract. So as you know, federal dollars come in for Medicaid. 70% of that comes from the federal government. 30% is a split between state and county. So about 25% is paid by the state and 5% is paid by the counties. So it's a really good deal for the counties to bring in these dollars. About half of our funding comes from Medicaid. Many of our clients are with mental health and substance abuse services are Medicaid eligible. So many of our community members are eligible for Medicaid, and this pays for their treatment. So I brought the infographic. Last time I was here, I was just talking about it, so I thought I would bring it and show you kind of how our funding is set up.
Bet.
So it's complicated, but essentially the county puts in about 5% and brings in about 95% of treatment funding for the safety net population. And this is last year's money. So this contract commits, so when we first looked at it, we were like, wow, is that a commitment? But it's up to this amount. So it's the match, so up to $9 million for 5 years. And that's the state's portion and the county's portion as well. Did I miss anything?
No, okay, you're good.
I guess the only thing to really add is the importance of that 5%. Obviously, if it's compounded to the point where we receive 95% of our funding because of that 5%, the importance of Carbon, Emery, and Grand County providing that 5.
What it really works out to be is about $1 million a year in match. The $9 million is up to, it really won't be that high. And honestly, the 3 counties combined put in about $200,000 to bring in $1 million, or $4 million per year.
And that's for our most disabled community members, people with serious mental illness and people with serious addiction problems.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Take a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, the next two items I'd like to talk about together and then take a vote on those separately. So these are the Carbon County Regional Airport ratification of the Utah Unified Certification Program, and then the next item is the consideration and possible approval of the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program participation for the Carbon County Airport for the fiscal years of 2018-2019. The DBE program, or the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, is set up so that whenever the county receives $250,000 or more in federal funding for the airport, it's a requirement that this program is in place. And as you know, with the improvements at the airport, many times we've had more than that. And so even though we do not have any programs planned or any expansions or remodeling at the airport during the next 2 years, our cycle is up and we need to approve the new DBE program. In this, there are several addendums and information that would appear that it places quite a burden on the county as far as record keeping. And that is not so. Whenever there's a federal program or federal monies that we receive for the airport, then these record keeping and notification information kicks in. And when we bid out for those projects to happen, we also then include in the engineering request that this item be considered and be part of that program. And so in the past, the work that Javation has done for us, they have covered the requirements here and made it available for us to qualify then for those federal dollars. So that's what the DBE program is this is just renewing what we really need to have in place as we go forward and do any other projects at the airport itself. So the second part of that was the Utah Unified Certification Program. And as part of this DBE program, whenever a contractor is awarded the program, they also have to certify that a certain percentage of their workforce and materials and so forth, that they are looked at into the disadvantaged community. And so to qualify for that, there has to be an approval process. And what this acknowledges is that we recognize that the Utah Department of Transportation, the Salt Lake Airport Authority, and there's a third one that is in there, and I'm not remembering right off the top of my head.
Utah Transit Authority is one of them.
And which is the UTA, that they act as that body that approve contractors or individuals to qualify for the disadvantaged program, which is a very good thing because then it doesn't put us in a situation of trying to determine, if a person's qualified to do the work in a federal program. So that's what is going on with both of those items on our agenda. And what we need to do, of course, is if you have questions, Christian and I can attempt to answer those for you, and then we would need to, of course, sign them, make them part of our process going forward with the airport.
I have no questions.
Commissioner Miller?
I don't have any questions that we haven't already
Okay.
that you haven't already covered.
So we're not ratifying the signing of the Utah Unified Certified Program, or are we? Has that already been signed?
No.
I don't think it has
It
been.
has.
No, it should be, it's actually just a straight approval of it. It has
Okay,
not yet been
that's,
signed.
it says ratification, so I just wanted to
Yeah,
make sure.
that was my mistake on that one.
So we take a motion on the first one on the approval of the Utah Unified Certification Program.
I'll make a motion to approve the Utah Unified Certification Program.
I'll second that motion.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next one then would be the approval of the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So Christian, if we could go ahead and if there's anything else there, we can go ahead and get signatures and then we'll get those sent back to Javation.
Absolutely.
Okay. And Rita, you could help us make sure that Mel Leesburg gets copies of those, please. Our next item is consideration and possible approval of conveyance of personal property, which is a metal building, to Carbon County Community Development Agency. Do you want to take that one, Christian?
I'll
or
start,
Seth?
Commissioners, and Seth can help me with this. Commissioners, you may know at a tax sale, we had actually a personal property item that came up for sale. This was a metal building up in Consumers, at the Consumers loadout there, previously owned by Amwest, abandoned by them. They hadn't paid taxes on it for many years. It was put up for sale at the county tax sale. There were no bidders on it, so it was stricken to the county. So the county is currently the owner of that building that's on site there. The county has broad powers to dispose of personal property as it deems fit, and our own procurement code says that if the county wants to make a distribution to another governmental agency, such as the Carbon County Community Development Agency, it can do so simply with your approval. It doesn't need to go up for auction. It doesn't need to be, there doesn't need to be a public hearing. So assuming you give it to the Economic Development, or the Community Development Agency, that agency can then dispose of it as it desires by statute. It's allowed to do so, and can do so for the purpose of promoting economic development and make special incentives for that, and basically give it to whom it feels would best be able to use that. Just as part of openly disclosing what is to be done, it's been proposed that this building be given to a Matt Blazer, who's been doing some metal fabrication work here in the county. He's ready to expand his business. This building would be of benefit to him, and so that is who it's proposed that you provide a bill of sale to under the item of 14.1 once you've convened as the Community Development Agency.
Commissioner, I'd like to add that we received several calls on this building. It's in a unique location. It's up in the loadout. And it's on BLM ground. No one came to bid, even though the building was up as advertised as required by statute for a month prior, and we actually advertised additionally in February that it was going to come up for sale. We advertised it for a month prior, so it was well advertised in the newspaper. We received several calls on the building, and as people were doing their due diligence, realizing that it is on BLM ground, and in order to leave the building there, they would have to step into the shoes of Amwest and provide a reclamation bond for that site, including all the coal that's on the ground, the loadout, any buildings there, and the idea of having to recover that coal, restore it to its initial contours, and haul everything off by the time they were done with the lease was very onerous, and most people declined to bid at that time. That's the biggest problem. The other problem is in some of the due diligence, people found that there's no power to the existing building. It's been disconnected and transformer moved, and in order to get that back, they'd have to go to work back with Rocky Mountain Power to provide power to the building. With all of those concerns, we put it up for tax sale since no one no one decided to bid on it there, and they had ample opportunity to. This company, which is Intermark Steel, Matt Blazer, as you mentioned, approached the county and said, we don't want to have the building up there where there's no power and with all that reclamation issue. We would rather move it within the county and be able to use it for as a new facility here in the county and provide economic growth as they're trying to expand their operation. And that's kind of some background as to why the county would be okay with taking down an existing building and moving it to someplace else in the county. It's because on the existing site, there's just too many hurdles for a new company to come in and want to use it for something else because of that reclamation bond, if it were to be left where it currently exists. Just kind of as background for you and for the public, so they know what we're dealing with. It's kind of a unique situation.
I think one other item that would come to light then is that building would then come back into our taxable rolls and have a value assessed and assigned to it. So,
correct.
Commissioners, we need a motion to convene as the Carbon County Community Development Agent.
We need to transfer it first from the.
That's where we would do
Appreciate
that.
you allowing me to take a couple minutes. I'm Tony Stoddard, the operations
Just a minute.
executive
Hold
officer.
on.
You haven't been, the commission needs to determine, you're not on the agenda to speak to this, so they need to first decide whether they're going to allow you to speak to this. So, just a moment then. They'll take that up.
So,
Give us your name though.
Anthony Stoddard,
Anthony Stoddard.
OEO for Wraith Transportation and LTL Logistics. We've been working for the past, 7 to 8 months trying to figure out who actually owned the property, because we were speaking with Amwest Exploration and Mid-States, who had sold the property back and forth. After going to title search, they found out that
Come and talk into the microphone if you're going to talk.
Just give us that introduction, and then we'll talk about, what we need to do from there. So, just briefly what you just stated before, Anthony.
Okay, I'm Anthony Stoddard, Operations Executive Officer for Wraith Transportation and LTL Logistics. For the past 7 or 8 months, we've been looking at the property and the buildings to put a logistics company there, which would house 50 to 60 semi-trucks and provide 40 to 50 new jobs over the next 3 years. In so doing, we contacted Amwest and Mid-States, who had sold the property. Amwest sold the property to Mid-States. Mid-States thought that they owned the property, but they hadn't done due diligence and found out that it was on BLL land. And subsequently, in between going back and forth, we did find out that there was some back taxes that were owed. And in communicating with the owner, we went back to Amwest and told him that, well, you're responsible for these taxes, and we are more than happy to pay for the taxes. We also found out about the reclamation bond, and we're also willing to be able to take care of the property and restore it back to functional use. That's the reason I'm here today. Somehow we missed the sale, or it would have been easier, we'd have just paid for it. But it's our hope to be able to bring in a sound company, and we can provide jobs, both day, swing, and shifts, for mechanics and everything on up to upper management. We think that the site is in a good location because it's a little bit out of the way, and it'd be easy to maintain security. We've already contacted Rocky Mountain Power about replacing the transformer. The transformer is currently on site, but it's been moved to another building. I do not believe that transformer is up to current standards anymore. It would cost us about $10,000 to be able to put a new transformer in, and an additional $4,000 to hook it up. So we would also like, if we were able to get the property, we'd like to be able to, asphalt it, and bring everything up, put in, work with the county and put in appropriate means to handle all the water and everything like that comes off of the area. But this is what we're hoping to be able to do. We understand that it's already been a sale. We understand it's already in the county's hands. Giving the building to someone is very admirable, and I'm sure that individual would do backflips.
I should point out, the plan was not to give it to them, it was to be sold. So for approximately a little over $18,000, I believe, is what the price was going to be. So,
which was the taxes on it. So I appreciate that information coming forward. Commissioners, do you have questions on that? Because we have gone through the tax sale, we've gone through this process.
Originally, we were told that the back taxes were $23,504.
I'd have to look on it and see.
Yeah, of which we have already allocated funds for.
Anthony, do you have basically what you've said here, do you have it written and something that you could provide us if we wanted more time to consider it?
Oh, I can have it provided to you to your desk in the morning.
I would perhaps, Commissioner Potter, suggest that maybe we table it so that we can further discuss what would provide perhaps the most impact to our community, since this is a decision that maybe we have some flexibility with.
I would acknowledge that and would be concerned about moving forward where we are already in this process, or going backwards where we're already in that process. But we can have that discussion now that's on our agenda and go forward from there. But we'll take that into consideration, I'm sure, as we discuss it.
I appreciate it, Commissioner.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. So the next thing that we would need to do, Commissioners, would be to take a vote on whether we want to move that building into the Community Development Agency, and that would take a motion.
So either way that we went, it would need to go into that. If we wanted to sell this building to any party, it would need to go into this agency.
You could sell it as the county. The county, though, if you do it as a county, you have to look at you have more strict procurement requirements. Basically, you probably have to look and see if this qualifies as surplus property, and if it's surplus property, then you probably have to give it to the highest bidder. Whereas if you give it to the Community Development Agency, that agency has flexibility to use it as part of an incentive or economic development package. It's not bound by the same strictures as the county itself would be. So you could then look at the overall picture and say, hey, what is this use of this building? What use of this building is going to be best for the long-term development of the county, rather than who's going to pay the most money for this metal, which is what you'd have to do if you sold it as a county.
So is the county community development agency, is that county-wide, or is that specific to the area that's up there?
The agency is countywide.
Okay.
It covers the entire county.
So either way we decide this, it's okay to move it to the...
It would be the most desirable to move it into the agency, and the agency can make, once the county commission, the body, the three men that sit on the agency's board are the same as the county commission. So once it's moved into the agency, it would be easier to dispose of the property as the agency saw fit.
I'll make a motion to convey the personal property to Carbon County Community Development Agency.
We have a motion to...
I'll go ahead and second the motion to move the property into the Development Agency.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next item then is to convene as the Carbon County Community Development Agency. That'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to convene as the Development Agency.
Seconded.
So we'll now conduct this next item under the Community Development Agency, which is a consideration and possible approval of conveyance of the personal property, the metal building, as part of an economic development incentive package. And we've discussed it a little bit from Christian's standpoint. I don't know if there would be other items that you would like to add at this point with the background that's been given.
No, I wouldn't add anything. I think you have the agency has broad discretion to decide best how to sell this, how to package it. If you want to, you've heard a proposal to leave it in place. My concern is that this is a building that wasn't on. We delayed selling this at tax sale for. It has come up a couple of years, 2 or 3 years prior to this year, as being delinquent in taxes. So it's not just that this was the first time we could have sold it. It's been there for 8 years, approximately.
And it was sitting in bankruptcy for a couple of those years, and it just barely came out, which is why we
I guess it's certainly up to you to decide what would be best, most suitable economically. I know if you're going to use BLM land, there's going to be a process with the BLM. There might be a NEPA process. There might be several processes by which you get a bond for property and you enter into that lease. So the proposal you've heard sounds like it would involve such a thing, whereas the other proposal, I think, is just a straight transfer of a building that's going to be used for a business that's looking to expand. It was recognized by you as a business that's already here and trying to expand. But you have broad discretion. Either way, you can study this for as long as you'd like, I believe, at this point, and look at all factors that might be relevant.
And if you wanted, you could instruct us to put it out to bid, and they could have a week to come up with their response of how they were intended to either prove that they could deal with the issues of the reclamation bond, provide information on what type of job growth it would provide for the county, and basically create an RFP of a proposal of sorts and do it that way if that was the desire, or we could just move it on. It sat for a long time. My preference would have been that somebody would just come and bought it, but
would have been a lot easier.
We're past that, so.
Tammy, I was just wondering, has this logistics company ever reached out to you with their intent to do business in the county?
No, but I can give them my card and just to talk to them. And if this doesn't work for them, I'm sure we can help them in another area.
Which is definitely, we would love to have the additional business in the area if this is something that doesn't go your way, so to speak.
So my hope or recommendation to the commission would be that maybe we could convene at a later date in 2 or 3 weeks and discuss the different options and then bring it back to the table at that point when we're ready to decide with the building. But I don't think we have to make a decision today as long as it's in the agency now. I think that's all we have to do.
So commissioners, part of that consideration that we need to really consider at this point too is that, we do have a company that we have committed, the ability to be able to sell that now that the county owned it. And so I think that also has to be part of that discussion, going forward. We do not want to, damage anyone. I wish we would have known this well in advance. Over the life of it, and I don't know how long your plan's been, in the process of being put together, but it's certainly something that if we do not, vote as the proposal is, if we're going to take a little bit more time, we're going to have a lot of information very, very quickly, because this cannot grow.
Buildings on site. I assume that you're talking about the large cranes.
Correct.
Correct. So.
What is the county's opinion of the other two buildings? The small office building and the
You'd need to come to the mic. I don't think we can pick up the recording on the question there. And I don't.
Are those part of the package? The only one that I know of that's been in this conversation is the large metal building with the cranes.
Yep. And what was assessed is on the tax roll was that large metal building with the cranes. As part of reclaiming the area, it included those other buildings. But what we had on the tax roll as being there was that building.
So we would have to look into those other buildings, see what their options are, Anthony.
Okay, yeah.
At this point.
So currently there are 3 metal buildings, and you're considering the largest one. There's a smaller building which had been an office building, and a maintenance shop behind that. The site still, even worst case scenario, the site, even if we lost the larger building, which we would use for maintenance of the trucks, the site still has enough area that we might be able to even negotiate something there to, I guess build another one if we had to, but we're pretty dead set on this area somewhere.
So we would love to try and help accommodate that.
So I appreciate your time.
Have you
Thank
talked
you.
to anybody at the BLM on this
Actually,
yet?
we have talked to the BLM.
Okay.
They told us that currently they're into about 30-some years of a 100-year lease, and that the way they described it is whoever got the buildings assumes the lease. So if we were awarded the building, then we would contact the BLM and become then the leaseor to that. After the 100-year period, we can repurchase the lease for a sum of $50,000, according to BLM, unless it's raised by them.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for that information. So, Commissioners, that was the only other comment I had, is that there's a number of possibilities here. And we, like we said, we do not have to make it one way or the other, but I would appreciate your input and your thoughts on that, or a motion on to move forward.
Just as a comment for the discussion, I think we definitely need to continue to work with Matt Blazer, who we've been working with, and be able to, how would you say, fulfill our duty and the relationship that we have with him in bringing jobs to our community. I think, though, that it might be beneficial to wait on making a decision today, just so that we have time to verify, if we do give him the building, that the property could still be leasable through the BLM, and to verify some of the things that have been said today, so that we don't have to base all our decisions on just last-minute information that we've not been able to verify.
Do we have any representatives from Intermark here?
I didn't see any.
And in the tax sale, was it just the large metal building, or was it, what was included? Did it include those other two office building and the?
Well, and the tax sale is separate from the moving into the CDA, just the one building.
The tax sale had a personal property, there's a personal property tax identification number that was referenced at the tax sale that I know included at least the big building, and I'd have to double check to see if it included the others as well. But it was my sense is that it was intended to capture all of the personal property on site that was owned by AmWest.
I think
because I think they owned those buildings. They brought those buildings there. The BLM did not.
So that's one other due diligence item we need to cover.
And my understanding with the BLM and speaking with the BLM is a little different than what I heard. I heard that they had declared the lease terminated with AmWest already, and that's done. So unless I got wrong information, my thought would be that the BLM could immediately enter into a new lease with respect to the ground itself.
I think as the community development agency, there are many decisions we could make, but the primary two that we should probably consider is whether to move forward and provide the property available to Matt Blazer now, today, or to table it or postpone the decision so that we can review this last-minute information that has been presented to us to find out if we want to make other decisions as well.
Sounds like a motion. Do you have other questions, Commissioner?
Tammy, you've been in contact with Matt Blazer. How soon did he want to move on this building?
We'd like the property inside of it as soon as possible. He doesn't plan to relocate the building until after the first of the year. So if we had to wait 2 or 3 weeks, it would be fine.
So I'd move that we postpone the decision as the community development agency until our next commission meeting, where we can reconvene as the community development agency.
That would be on September 20th. So if we could get all of the information, due diligence gathered by then, that would be the next date.
Commissioners, would you like that advertised? Because I know there have been some other inquiries. Spencer Lovelace requested information on that building. Also, Boyd Marsing requested information on that building, and another gentleman that called asking about it more for a ranching type facility, which I don't know if it'd lend itself well to that. But since there has been other questions about the building, would you prefer to have it advertised just to make sure we covered all of our bases and said, if you want information on it, get it now and get us your information so that we can actually make a decision in that building? Because I'd hate to have somebody else come and say, but we wanted it too.
So are you talking about an RFQ then, or an RFP, seeking out proposals for use of the building?
I would almost.
I mean, if you're gonna, when you say advertise it, it would be advertised, of course, as part of the agenda already, but you're talking about advertising it separately, perhaps as a request for proposals.
Yeah, so that we know all interested parties could present any information they had, their ability to step into the lease, their ability to take that, and their proposed economic impact to the community. That way they wouldn't have to, I don't want to have to come back, and I don't want to have to postpone it again.
If we do it that way, I think that we would do it not specifically for the building, but for the location and its assets, or its building, in the sense
both.
that possibly we could split the building with Matt and the location with this other group or other interested parties.
I think if you do an RFP, you need to go out past the 20th, though, to
Yeah,
get
I was
that
gonna say
information.
That won't match the or the advertising requirements.
And which meeting would match those deadlines?
Let's handle the motion that's on the table to postpone a decision on this. So we have a motion, and we can come back and discuss that. Commissioner Hopes?
I just want to be clear that because Matt Blazer was the first company to come and talk about the large building specifically, it's my intention or my thought that he's done the due diligence to begin with. I see that the building should go to his company, but I don't have a problem looking at the rest of the property to see if there's a way that we can help out another company to get into that property. If that's what the intention is, I'll second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. I
Well,
think that's the intent, or
I don't know that you had, that sounded like a substitute motion
It's-
rather than a
perhaps it
second. It
is.
sounded like a separate motion, probably,
that
unless
as a
you'd like
substitute.
Commissioner
I'll
Miller
make it
to
as a
clarify.
substitute motion.
okay. So we have a substitute motion, just adding that we need to look at the whole property, the ability for the building perhaps to go to one company, the site and the other buildings to go to the other company.
So as I understand it, the motion is to allow the building to go to Matt Blazer, and then we can make a decision on the rest of the property later.
I did not hear that in the motion, Commissioner.
No, it was, how do I put this? The motion is my substitute motion is to look at the availability of giving the larger building to Matt Blazer and separating out, to make sure that we can separate out the other buildings and the lease to another company.
But to also delay a final decision, is that also
Until
part of
next-
that?
Until next week when we can gather all the information.
Until the appropriate RFQs are issued.
Correct.
Which may be
Or
a month from
RFPs.
now or whenever.
Okay, so we have that substitute motion. Are we clear on what that is?
I hope so.
I'll go ahead and retract my motion and second the substitute motion.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we'll need to go to work on that. Let's talk about the RFP process and how long we would need to advertise that, and that would then dictate the timeline by which we would need to gather the other information from Anthony and or anybody else that may be interested in there. Because I'm with Seth. I don't think we want to do this over and over again and extend any deadlines, so.
Well, but I don't know that so the motion that was made was to study whether or not it can be separated out, right? So how are you going to do an RFP if you don't know
Okay.
at this point whether you can separate those out?
So if we gave it till our next commission meeting to study that element of it,
And then I think
put it out
decide.
for
then
RFP.
then we, in that meeting, could decide whether we
That's
could
what
do
I'd recommend.
an RFP on it.
Yes.
Is that a better timeline?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that really fits with what the motion was to study that element there.
Can
That
I
makes more
also add
sense.
to that, if it can be split out, if we find that it can be split out, that we put on there a possible conveyance of personal property to Matt Blazer, which would be the large building and not the property, if it can be separated out.
As part of your motion? Are you making
No.
that part of your motion?
Well, I just would like that to be added to the
Or
next
as a
commission
separate
meeting
okay.
as an agenda item. I don't want to delay him being able to move on his project if we can sort of separate it out.
Sure.
I don't want to bring it back to yet another one. If the building can be separated out, then we go out for RFQ for the rest of the property and the other buildings.
at that
I'd like
point
to
in
make
time.
approval of that next week if it can be done.
In
And then
2
we can
weeks.
go out for RFQ, and that, however long that takes, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll do that. Anthony, if you'd be sure to get card and information with Tammy Ursenbach, our Economic Development Director, then we can, build that. So we'll be working on our side of it. It would be great for you to start to get your information into us as soon as possible, including, company information, obviously, information from BLM, anything else that would be required to look at that as a project. And thank you for bringing it to our attention. Okay, thank you. Commissioners, we need to reconvene as the Carbon County Board of Commissioners.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our next item is a consideration and possible approval of an in-kind contribution to the NRCS Regional Conservation Partnership Program for the Price River Watershed Enhancement Project. I don't know if one of you would like to take that information, or we can have Christian allude to that too.
I was going to say, Commissioner Hopes, you probably have a lot of that, don't you?
A little bit of it. This is the group that, what are they called? The Water
Conservancy?
No, not the Conservancy District. The Price Watershed Committee
Mm-hmm.
is going after some funding from the regional, or no, what is it?
If you want, I can.
Anyways, to get this funding, they have to have letters of support from the community. These letters of support are basically showing that our communities, we have Helper, Wellington, Price City, and Carbon County, showing that either it's not even in kind, it's just that we are working on river restoration projects in the county, and because we're doing that, we would qualify for this funding program. So we're basically saying in the next 5 years, there's a potential that we could spend up to $25,000 or more on river restoration or channel cleaning or any of those types of projects in the community. And then as a letter of support to the committee that's going for the funding, it allows them to have more stakeholders, show that there are more stakeholders for funding.
It's a multiple phased project, it sounds like.
Correct.
So do we have a motion to approve that in-kind commitment of $25,000 over the next 5-year period of time, which we've probably take care of in 1 year's period of time? If you mobilize the road department to do any kind of that work.
Right.
And we already have some of that already designated this year, so I think we'll meet that match real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a motion to approve.
And I'll second that motion. And I was just going to add, the only other thing is, well, just as you mentioned, Commissioner Hopes, they're mostly just looking that community-wide, that we have ongoing projects, that we plan to continue having ongoing projects towards river restoration, water conservancy, and things of that nature. So this is just more of an acknowledgement letter rather than anything else, acknowledgement and support. So it's quite the opportunity that this group has found, these different pots of money for us to apply for.
We have a motion.
And a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Our next item is a ratification of a recommendation of the Southeast Utah Board of Health to appoint Brandon Bradford as the acting local health officer. Commissioners, by state statute, the Board of Health needed to have his appointment ratified by this legislative body and each of the other counties. Even though he has been acting in that role, we still need to go ahead and ratify that, and so that's why it's before us today.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to ratify that.
Have a motion?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
What's that? Yeah.